here and we will get going. Amazing. So how was the work this week for everyone? Is this completely new to most people? I think Donna has done some work on it, as well as Rona, a little bit with Lauren. Carol, I think you'd said you're quite new to this area.
Yeah, the values, yeah.
Yeah.
I've sort of heard about it and thought about it maybe once a few years ago, but nothing since.
And one thing I wanted to start with today, because obviously you've done a bit of reflection, you were given kind of like a list of words and things like that, but I've actually got a values quiz that I think Donna has done. But for those of you that haven't, and Rona, but those of you who haven't completed the quiz, it might be a really nice mirror exercise to kind of like just check and challenge on the values that you have. Because I always say, has everyone got a list of 4 or 5 with them today that they're kind of comfortable?
Yeah.
I just need to open mine.
Yeah. Okay. Because it might be a nice check and challenge on a different day. It's a Monday. It's 7 o'clock. Like, does anything crop up differently, right? Because we wear all these different masks and all these labels. Is that, we thought that might be a nice way to just check in and see if there's consistency around some of those ones that are coming up. So I think some of you hopefully can see that link in the chat box. For those that have done it before, you don't need to do it again, but it's available to you. Lizzie, do you want to put your list of names, list of words in the chat box as well? Because again, sometimes seeing different words, different names can bring up a different resonance and a different emotion. And this bit is about looking at everything that's available to you, picking the beauty. And you might be like, I don't know what it is about that word, but there's just something really powerful about it. And we don't want to miss anything at this initial stage. So with that quiz, please don't pick more than 10 initial words or you'll be here all night on the initial page.
Wow.
And yeah, just work that through. It should take like 5 minutes, I think. Because I think that's the first bit of this, is that they're fluid. You know, once we embrace the fact that they change as we change, there's a really different way that we can explore this. Over to you.
Yeah.
Has everyone got that link okay?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I did them a couple of weeks ago, and after like this week's reflections and things, I've redone it again, because I think what was quite interesting with the ones that I had the first time, at least 2 of them, so acceptance and certainty, I feel are sort of, there's something maladaptive about my need for those.
Yeah.
When I thought about where they've kind of come from. And more often than not, it's when it's those 2 that sort of lead me astray a bit, or, you know, I get, if I'm focused on those, then it's probably because there's something else wrong. And so when, like, we were talking about authenticity and our true selves, I was thinking, well, and the questions about which ones do I value and which ones am I honouring and putting them in order, that suddenly made those 2 jump off the page as kind of just not being right.
Interesting, isn't it? They all have a counter value too, right, as well. So they have something that's the other extreme. And I think exploring that's really interesting, because actually that gives you what's kind of getting in the way. So
some of them are very similar as well.
Yeah, and that's where we're getting to the feeling now today. So Rona, if you could put, for anyone that has got them, put your 5 in the chat box if you can.
Well, yeah. How do I do chat?
So there should be a speech bubble, and then you just type it.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Did you say there was a quiz you're putting in there?
So
my 5. Sorry.
Say that again, Lauren.
Sorry, before you start, did you say there was a quiz you were putting in the chat?
Yeah, it should be. Can you not see it?
I can only see Lizzie's
core values list I've got.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought, that might be because I put it in before everyone joined. It's in there now.
Okay, beautiful.
But again, you know, this is something that just the more you can in the first few weeks, check and challenge this, you'll get to kind of a list that you're back and that you're comfortable with. And we'll do it at the end as well, because actually from our last course, everyone had trust as a core value at the end of the program. And that was really interesting, because obviously at the beginning it was like, well, no, like, you know, we have to, the control was strong, but actually as we built our intuition, trust as a value came out a lot higher as well. And that's really fascinating to see. And then when you're working through that as well, when you come out with your 5, just think about the counter value. So think about the other extreme of that. So with Rona, pleasure, for example, we talk a lot about that one. Think about the opposite.
I find it difficult because there's words that I want to be.
Yeah,
and I think it's different to a value.
I think this is where it's being really honest with yourself as well about who you really are. So it might even be something that you might not like about yourself, but being honest about that being your value too.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and I think one thing that can really help is that question in the work about a peak experience, because that can give you an idea about the times in your life when actually things were awesome and you felt like on top of the world, and what was present there, and what was driving kind of that behavior and what was being honored in terms of your values. That can be a really nice reflection as well.
Yeah, so to add to that, I guess it's connecting to the energy that you were feeling at the time of that experience of that value.
Yeah, and what we're going to be doing today is getting into the feeling of these, because actually me, Lauren, Rona and Carol could all have a value of freedom, and we could demonstrate that and feel into that in 3 different ways. How many of us? 3 different ways. So actually, you know, it's about how that feels like to us personally, and then how that then links to action and behavior. And that's the next bit of this thinking, in that we don't often do this in an organizational setting. We'll just do the word and we'll leave it there. But actually, you know, how does joy feel different to peace in our body, you know, and what are the signs that we know we're in connection with that? So Lizzie, you talk a lot about being connected to love as like a value. So tell us a bit about how you know that you're connected to that value.
You put me on the spot here.
Yeah.
So let's see. Hang on, I think I've got my right back here. Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I guess if you were to look at love and then the word joy, I think they're quite similar, aren't they? So for me, like, connection is one of my values. So I like to be connected with others because it means I'm sharing with them, and I'm connecting with them in terms of spirituality. So for me, like, all of these words, they're really similar, they're interrelated. And so for me, love means joy, love means spirituality, love means being present with another person in this moment here in time, and how that feels in my body. I feel alive. I get this sort of surge of well-being, wellness feeling from my heart that spreads into my whole body. I feel really positive. I feel happy. That's how I can explain it, probably in the most simplest sense.
I resonate with the alive feeling. I think alive and alignment, being in alignment with your values, is definitely a feeling that you can place. And that comes back to energy, doesn't it? Because often as well with these, there are guides. So when we're not in alignment, we might feel drained. So when we leave a situation with someone that conflicts a boundary or conflicts a value of ours, we might feel that energy drain. So it comes back to feeling uplifted, light, you know, all those things are our guides in the way that we can kind of know, oh, something's off. It's like a little temperature check. How are we getting with that quiz?
Getting there.
I'm just interested to see if you guys have a similar. Similar experience. One thing that I found was really useful when I first did this work, as well as I asked my parents, or I actually asked my parents, but you can ask a family member or your parents what their values are, because actually it's really interesting sometimes to understand how many of those came from like the way that you were brought up in the world, and how much were learned versus chosen as well. You know, and as you work through this, you'll realize, like, is that mine? You know, is that value of loyalty? You know, if that was drummed into you, you know, as a child, that might be something you've adopted. You know, and with all of this, it's about the values that are yours today, supporting you in who you're becoming. And values move you forward. They don't keep you stuck. And that's what we'll be challenging on today. You know, how is that going to help you move forward? Lizzie, pop your values in the chat as well.
Okay, yeah, sorry, I will do that now.
All right. You have a lot of values, Rona. You're not allowed that many values. You're allowed
Well, I think you gave me permission to add 6 when I did the first.
I just worry about, you know, it's the whole overwhelming ourselves. So I want you to maybe prioritize those. I want a top 3.
Okay.
Because we're building new habits here, so I'd rather you drill in 1 or 2 and get them really strong, and then you can replicate the process with the others, rather than trying to do them all and actually lose the.
I think with trust coming in today, it was certainly with the removal of certainty and acceptance.
Okay.
I think certainty and acceptance are not helpful to me. They are maladaptive.
You've disowned them.
Delete them.
Delete.
But that's what I think is interesting about some of them that are similar, because actually acceptance and appreciation, I feel like when I was first thinking about acceptance, a big part of that was about me being accepted and appreciated.
Yeah.
But acceptance has a lot of judginess about it as well.
That's probably not the right word then for you at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah. Like anything that, that probably isn't the right landing in the right way.
No.
We'll get into the detail of these, because that's what it's about. It's not really about the word. It's about, how do I know that you've honored that? You know, and that's the next step here.
I've got my 5 now.
Amazing. If you could just pop them in the chat box, and then we're going to use these to just support us through the
You're talking about words. The word judge seems to have doesn't have an equal connotation anymore. It seems to be, if you're being judged, it's a bad thing. But judge could be good or bad, couldn't it?
Yeah, really good point. It's just how it makes you feel. Like if that's making you feel a little bit kind of closed, which I sense it was, that's probably not going to open you up to then support the work that we're doing here. So I'd say, again, it's about words that are resonating and making you feel open rather than closed. Perfect. Thank you, Carol. And this is quite new to you, Carol, isn't it? You've not really.
Took me ages to, and it was quite hard.
It will the first time, and that's why I'm asking Phoebe to do it 2 or 3 times as well, because actually, like, a lot of the time we're in our head with this. Initially, the first few times it's like very logical, but actually it's about dropping into the body and feeling into this, and the more we do it, the more we can actually kind of come at it from that slightly different perspective.
I was also trying to do it without overthinking it. What sort of?
Why that quiz is good, because it compares subconsciously, it gets you out of your head because it compares them against each other. And you'll do that quiz quite quickly, because so you don't overthink it.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got a few to work through there. So I'm just going to ask a few just kind of questions here around some of these, just for your own clarity. Can I just ask, with those, were they quite similar to the ones you'd come up with the homework, Donna and Carol and Lauren, or were they quite, they're having consistency and there's a theme, which is great, because that's showing that we're kind of getting to a consistent message there. Was there any surprises?
Not really, no, not for me.
Okay.
I did the quiz twice actually. So I did it obviously with the initial course that we did with Kate Natalie about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and then I did it again today, and it didn't change, interestingly. I think the priority shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
And
that might be on different days, and we'll talk about the priority in a bit, because obviously you can't honor all of them all at once with every decision you make. So actually some of them might have they might have an order of, actually, I know that in any situation I need to be honoring freedom, but actually forgiveness, for example, that then has elements where actually it can be honored kind of less and more depending on the situation. And that's something you'll find in time. You'll know the ones that are absolutely non-negotiable. There you go. And it'll be one or two that you're like, any decision has to sit in alignment with that. But actually that won't always be the case for every single one, especially when your environment changes. Right, I'm going to ask a few questions around some of these, and it's just getting into kind of like dropping into the feeling of when that's present, what's around you in terms of behavior. So Carol, I'm going to ask a bit about authenticity. So tell me about a time when you felt like you were being or acting in alignment, honoring that value of authenticity. What were you doing? Who were you with?
Yeah, I need a bit of thinking time on this.
And don't worry, and you can, because I can also going to ask Donna the same question around probably passion. So again, think about that, Donna, for you. And then Lauren, think a little bit about adventure. Okay, and it's about thinking about a behavior and an action that aligns to that value, because this is the next level with all of these, is actually, what does that day look like when that's being honored? Is there a person that brings that out in me? And Rona, I'm going to ask you to do the same for peace. Actually, we've talked a lot about pleasure. We're going to go for a bit more detail on peace.
I'm wondering, when I'm with my goddaughter who's 3, and I'm just sort of maybe playing. I don't know, I'm thinking out loud here, whether that's the real me and I just sort of go with the flow, whatever she wants to do. I do it and I enjoy doing it.
Interesting.
So is that
an element of like not having to be anyone else or anything? You're very in the moment.
Well, I do feel responsibility as well to do the right thing in front of her. I wouldn't swear in front of her because she repeats everything like children do. So I've got to be the real me, but maybe
is that free? It feels like that might be more freedom to be authentic. I don't know, I'm just challenging you, because actually
I don't know,
interesting, because actually it might not be authenticity. Is it about being free in that moment to be authentic?
Yeah, just to play, like make mud pies. I'm not sure. I need a bit more.
But this is the question I want you to ask on every single one, is it that word? Because actually the action behavior is going to give you the word, but we kind of need to like scrutinize it and do the whole circle. What about adventure, Lauren?
I think when I think of the core value of adventure, it comes from a place of having lack of adventure, that I know when I am not experiencing new things and I'm not pushing myself into these boundaries, like onto my boundaries of things that scare me or new places or meeting new people, that I find myself feeling a sense of loss when I don't do those things. I get a little bit lost in myself. So it's like, it could be freedom as well as adventure, but I feel like when I don't take myself to a new museum I've never been to, or I don't make the time to walk to work a longer way instead of getting on the bus and going to work, then I really feel it that I've not experienced my day properly.
Yeah, absolutely. But you still got to the detail of the action and behavior. Either way you've gone. So you see what I mean? So you either can use a peak experience or you can use a trough experience, which is the opposite of what you've just done there, an extreme moment when you felt the lack and you felt out of alignment and disconnected. So that the two approaches are really useful, but you can use either or to get to the action. So you've just done it a slightly different way, which is fascinating, because you might approach them all slightly differently depending on like what we've learned and programmed around that, the action there, in that, you know, it's not, there's not a right or wrong in terms of how you get to that.
I think it's having done a little bit of this value work before, knowing that that type of thing is a value I have, and then actually recognizing it in myself when I'm not honoring that value and why. So yeah, adventure, I'm not surprised it was on the top. Because when I get stuck in an office job or I'm working 40 hours a week doing something I really know is not in alignment, which is why I'm here.
Absolutely.
I really feel that.
It's a great temperature check, isn't it? And that will lead us, we're going to spend the second half of the session on co-creating some action around bringing it more into your life. So my next question for you to sit on is actually a daily action that could connect you to adventure, because that's where we're headed in terms of using that then as a positive tool to move us forward. But it's important to reflect on this bit first. Actually, it's the daily bit. It's not about, oh, well, I can have adventure once a year when I go to Canada and I do skydiving, right? Like, it's about, actually, we can have that available to us every single day, but actually we've just got to really connect to that kind of feeling of what that is. And you've kind of mentioned it in terms of the bus as an example. Cool. Donna, what about yours in terms of passion?
Was the question, what does it look like?
Yeah, so how, like, on a day that you looked back and you thought, yeah, that value has really been honored today, like what would have showed up for you? Like, what would it be? Different projects you were working on? Did you do any activities that maybe made you feel like that was being honored?
Yeah, so the passion one, for me, as I understand it, just looking at that quiz, it's about having a hobby, doing something that you really enjoy. And for me, that's sport. I'm quite sporty, so I do quite a lot. And I think I definitely feel like I'm honouring that value, you know, when I go and do CrossFit or I go and play tennis. That's definitely kind of up there and really important.
But don't use those indicators there to guide us, right? But actually that doesn't mean that has to be the only thing that brings you that passion, because for you it might be learning a new skill, for example. So I think sit with that a bit more. Like, is it passion that going and playing tennis or CrossFit that aligns to, or is it another value?
I think also there's other things that really bring, like I'm really enjoying at the moment, like, so interiors, so I'm sort of doing at my house at the moment, and that's becoming a real hobby and I'm really enjoying it. But then I do wonder actually if it's a little bit too connected to joy, because that really brings me joy. It brings me more joy than anything. So I'm wondering if maybe I should go and find another value, because I know it's similar.
Yeah, but also they're interconnected, right? Because actually often you can get to one through another. So by experiencing joy, you get to passion. So they're not isolated. They're all going to connect. But this is about getting really clear about what is the actual thing that I'm doing that's driving that. And it's less about the word. It's more about the action and behavior, because that's the bit that makes a difference to our lives. Not about saying, no, it's not freedom, it's acceptance. You know, that's not the detail that's important here. It's about the what.
Yeah, that ties in a bit with me as well, Donna, because I really like exercising and I do it every day. So one of my values came out as health, and that's my reason for exercising, and I enjoy doing it.
Awesome. And Rona, what are your thoughts on your one?
peace for me is quiet, and probably like being on my own in that. So I guess it's just, yeah, it's definitely a low stimulation, you know, a quietness, the absence of any sort of conflict. I feel like I have such a lot of, not like I have major conflict, but I have quite a lot of, you know, just I'm so fickle. I flip between, and just internal conflict and dialogue and thoughts, and very busy, never really quite being sure, changing my mind a lot. So peace, I value peace, just to be with myself. And I guess I feel like maybe that's linked a little bit with that authenticity bit as well, that I think when I'm around other people, I get so easily drawn into needing to look after them, or for them to approve of me, or you know, that there's some sort of exchange.
We're
Always.
picking up on their energy, right? As well.
Yeah,
that's effective.
yeah.
And there's a quote that says, the more acts of self-care you do, the stronger your authenticity or true authentic self builds. Because actually the quiet time brings us back to our core truth, but actually the environment in lots of ways can take us away from that sometimes. But a daily action for me, an example, and it doesn't have to be this, Rona, but a daily action could be for you, literally like no technology, for example. That's where the value could then link to a window in your day where you actually allow yourself that space. Do you see? Then that becomes the commitment of actually something that will shift behavior. And that's where I'm getting you to it in terms of you can say, oh, quiet time, what does that mean? Does that mean on a Wednesday or every lunchtime you're going to go and sit at your favorite I don't know, park bench and read a book? And I know when it is, and I know it's going to happen, because actually that's what we need to shift the behavior, not like, oh, well, actually, this is really generic. I will be driving the so what and the specifics. And that's what me and Lizzie will be working through with you over the next week, because that's the bit that makes a change. And that's why I'm going to be really annoying about so when? Cool. Amazing. Okay, so quick one now that I want you to spend some time on is just your 5. Pop them into an order for me. It doesn't have to be the order forever, don't worry, but do rate them in terms of importance if you can, an average day. And then I want you to ask the question, to what extent am I currently honouring that value in my life today? 0, not at all. 10, completely.
I can't settle.
So can you say it again? Sorry, I've put them in order, and then
So how am I currently honouring this value in my life today? Average day. 0, not at all. 10, completely, because it gives you an idea of where the work needs to be done.
Right. Thank you.
I'm just going to move because I just started a yoga class and I think I'm going to go downstairs. How are we getting on?
Got some numbers.
Lots of numbers. So what was our top? Does everyone want to just shout out their top?
I've put health as my top one. And then ethics, then friendship, then accountability, then authenticity. And an average day, I've given myself 10 for health, 7 for ethics, 5 for friendship, 4 for accountability. And the authenticity one, I'm having issues with this because I think maybe if I'm honoring my values, does that mean I am being authentic?
Yeah, I think there's something deeper around authenticity. I don't think it's the right.
It doesn't feel the right word, no.
I think let's do a bit of work on that separately and get that clear, because
Okay.
it might be truth, for example. Like, is it about, I want to dig into like what is it about being authentic? You know, that needs a little bit more exploration, I think. But isn't it so interesting how your priority areas directly map to how they're currently being honored?
Yes.
That's good, because it's showing that you're putting the energy in the right places at the moment. Donna?
Just in terms of honouring them on a daily basis.
You just run us through the priority order first, and then.
Oh, okay. So just what it was in the chat. So family, love, friendship, joy, passion.
Okay, in that area, in that order.
And then in terms of honouring family, definitely. Joy and passion. I'm just gonna say joy and passion. I think they're just the same thing for me. I think. And then friendship, and then love right at the bottom.
Okay, and what, in terms of the numbers there, can you be specific with the numbers?
Yeah, so
a really good note, because actually you'll be able to go back at the end and use that as a good benchmark as well.
You want me to give you the numbers, yeah?
Yeah.
So family 8, family 8, joy and passion probably an 8, friendship 4, love 2.
Okay.
So I'm giving my family everything. My husband and friends nothing.
Yeah, and it's so interesting, isn't it, how just being aware of that to start with is so important, because actually we don't realize how much we're doing this subconsciously, you know. And one question, you know, to ask you is like, what could you do tomorrow that would make friendship a 10? Like, what's one thing that you could do? And you don't have to answer now, but actually sometimes it's just getting clear about those little windows of the day. Like I always say with commuting, we've lost a commute. Like we used to commute an hour to work and back every day. That's a time when we call a friend or call our mum or something. And actually, if you lose that window, how can you reconnect back with that if it's a priority? So maybe just have a little think about what that looks like. Because specific bit here, and the date nights with your husband, for example, you know, is that weekly, is that bi-weekly, is that monthly? But there's a commitment there to be made, isn't there? Lauren?
So in order, I've got authenticity, love, health, adventure, and compassion. And in terms of if I'm honoring them every day, authenticity is probably sitting right around the 5, the middle mark. Love at 8, health at 7, adventure 6, compassion 9. I definitely think authenticity is something I feel very strongly about, but also as a people pleaser, find it hard to stick to being authentically me. So I know that's an area to work on. And health, I've had some health issues. So I am normally very healthy, very active, and haven't been able to be as active with an injury. So I felt my health not being able to do what I normally do has been quite challenging, to the point where I've lost a little bit of my balance in the health aspect.
And just to help Carol, because you've got a similar value there in terms that it feels like you're quite clear on authenticity, explain the feeling of what's present when that's being honored, just because it can help Carol get a bit of clarity as well.
Authenticity is a tricky word to put into a box, and I feel like it really aligns with your favorite saying, which is, who were you before the world taught you how to be? And we get so stuck in who people think we are that we can sometimes move our behavior to, as a people pleaser that I know I'm working on, we move our behavior to be less authentic to please other people. And I know I do it regularly, and I have to catch myself when I know it doesn't align with me being authentically me.
And it's often to keep them comfortable, right? Like,
Rather than
they're like, oh, but then we dull our sparkle because to keep them comfortable, which seems just crazy, doesn't it? But a lot of this is conditioning, because going back to childhood essence, those unique qualities that made us stand out, we dumbed down to survive because we had to fit in because we needed to survive, right? So that is important to remember, the fact that actually back then, me not being center stage was probably survival, that I had to just fit in and be more of an introvert like my family. But right now, actually, it's great for me to be that person, because then I'm going to actually be able to live my life and be true to my life purpose. So that it's just knowing that sometimes a survival mechanism isn't needed right now, because actually we're going to survive, but the program and the mind is still protecting us, just in terms of safety. A lot of this comes back to keeping us safe. Our mind's trying to keep us safe, and it's like, is that actually supporting me in this moment? Because I'm not in danger, but often our mind is seeing the signal of danger, of survival, and that's where a lot of this is really interesting. Thank you for clarifying that, Lauren.
That does help, because not so much now, but I would used to be like that in a situation. If I thought somebody was uncomfortable, then I would change my behavior to try and make them feel better. And I'm realizing now that's not my responsibility to do that.
The people pleasing is so fascinating, and you'll find that as you move through this process, the values will be a really good tool for you to kind of support you with people pleasing as well. Because actually, once you realize the cost of pleasing that person, the cost to you, then actually you'll put that boundary in place, you'll make that change. But often we're just not clear on the cost, hence we don't then change the behavior, because often the cost is to us. It's not the individual in that scenario. We take that home, we hold that in our body, it's not them. And that's the issue there, isn't it, with people pleasing. Rona, what about you?
Oh, I'm struggling.
Oh, don't worry, it'll get messier before.
It's not easy, is it?
It isn't.
I just got the biggest elephant sat on my chest. I just can't make sense of. I've got gazillion notes everywhere.
I feel like you need to sit with this. This is where Lizzie's amazing, in that we'll do a meditation at the end that will help you embody this. But I feel like you need to stop thinking about it. And we're going to do a visualization about a day in the life of living and breathing our top value to end. And that is going to really help, because we are just, it's the only way we know how to do it is rationalize it and logically find the solution. But our mind isn't the one that has the answer here. And it's quieting that noise often, and that's kind of creating a space where meditation and things can just really help. But it's fine. It's meant to be hard. I always say, if it was easy, everyone would do it.
I mean, I still find this really hard, this work too.
Absolutely, because it's constantly changing as well, constantly being triggered by different things. So one thing I'm just going to get you to think about now is pick the lowest value. So the one you scored the lowest.
I haven't scored any of them.
It's all right. Just pick one then. Just pick one. And then I want you to we're going to go into small groups just quickly to co-create and use each other to create one daily action around that value. Because this is where you'll then have the tools to go off and do this for the other values on your own. But I want you to be able to do this once, because obviously that's the bit that can be quite hard. But having someone to help give you an idea. Wait here, because often our mind's getting in the way. We just need some ideas thrown at us, and we just have to have some fun. It's about trial and error. It might be the most random thing, like African dancing might give you access to peace. You're all unique, and it's about finding what makes you tick in that instance. And I always say, use the senses here. You know, our senses are such a gift, and they're such a great tool to access our values. So if we're struggling, think a little bit about bringing it back to our senses that then connect us back to our body. They've been really useful for me. Smell, taste, touch, you know, all of those things can give us a lot of activities and things that can fall out of that. Even literally popping a candle on or listening to a certain song can bring about a physical change in our body. It's so powerful. Cool. So happy with what you're doing. I'm going to put you just in twos and then just give you 2-3 minutes, and then we'll come back and share that one commitment. And that's something we'll just roll into next week as well. Okay. I'm going to let it do its thing, which I always do. So let me put, okay. Fab. All right. So there's 3 of you in one group, 2 of you in another, and I'll join the one with 2. Off you go.
Yeah. This is fun. I haven't done this before, Natalie.
What, the daily action bit or the?
No, the like little separate groups
Breakout
inside.
room.
Oh yeah, we did the last bit. You missed out on all the fun. Yeah, this is where the true magic happens, because you get to actually, do you know what I mean, use each other, because actually this is where you can get out of your own mind, because sometimes you're getting in your own ways. You just need someone else to throw something at you that can be like, oh my God, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, my lowest score was the one we're struggling with, the authenticity one.
Yeah.
Do you want to leave park that for the moment, Carol?
Yeah, so accountability was my next lowest.
What was, sorry?
Accountability.
Talk to me a bit about accountability. What does that mean? When accountability is being honoured, what does that
I feel I'm more like, I don't know if it's an honour, I feel like I'm more likely to do something if somebody else is relying on me to do it.
Okay.
I'm more likely to do something for someone else than myself. But then this is my confusion about behaviour and value.
Mm-hmm. It feels like accountability is the action, but I don't think accountability is the value here.
Right.
I don't know if you agree, Lauren. I think the value might be about action or change.
Yeah, maybe the value, because my other things were ethics and friendship, and previously
Let's use friendship as an example.
Okay.
Because it's easy to work through, and then we can apply it back. So one, give me, you know, an idea of how tomorrow you could bring about an uplift in that value of friendship. One thing you could do that would commit to the fact that you know that I'd be honoured more highly today compared to tomorrow.
I could message somebody that I haven't done so for a while, get in contact again.
And is it about is it about just that one conversation? Is it about actually agreeing to meet? Is it about, because that's about getting clear, like what is it that we are looking for from that friendship? Is it kind of the odd conversation? Is it about,
no, it's maintaining or can't fit,
maybe a weekly
Sorry?
action. So that might become a weekly action, for example, in that you might do that tomorrow, and then you might commit to check in on that friend once a week.
Yes, because that's been it. I drive past this elderly gentleman's house every day, and I cast him as a friend. And I say, every time I drive past his house, I say, must message Ted, and I don't do it, and then I feel bad.
Well, we're going to ask you, because we're going to ask you tomorrow about whether you message Ted. So that's your accountability.
Right.
But it feels like there's something about the ongoing nature of that, not just the odd message. Because
to maintain that. Yeah. Especially with him, because he is elderly. Yes.
So that gives you an idea, but I think let's work through this out of session, Carol, and get the others clear, because I think the others have all done this once before. So we're completely new to you, so don't worry.
Okay.
Lauren, what was your lowest? It was the authenticity.
Lowest ranked or lowest?
Lowest ranked.
Scored. Compassion. Compassion.
And talk to me about when compassion is present, what how would I be able to see that show up in your life? Like, how would I see you being compassionate?
So compassion wasn't something I had listed in my core 5 values, but it came up in the quiz as a core value. And it does align with me when I bring this up. I haven't had this pop up before, but I am very passionate about teaching new things to people, or like upskilling.
You know what we're getting into here, Lauren? We're getting into life purpose, aren't we?
And even just recently, and I'm working in retail at the moment. It's not the most passionate jobs that I've ever had before, but I always find everything I do in work, even if I don't really align with the work, there is some aspect of it that you can grow from. So even in retail, I've got some brand new team members who are starting for Christmas and are finding it quite stressful or anxiety inducing in this current climate of being in retail, and just having a little bit compassion for them and talking them through what their concerns are, and putting them at ease and giving them my 100% focus when I'm listening to them, so that they know they have me to listen to, is kind of how I show up with compassion at the moment, is just being there for other people.
Okay. And that's something, again, in terms of a daily action. Maybe tomorrow you could offer that safe space for someone that you notably see struggling, and create, be almost preventative rather than reactionary a bit more. So rather than waiting for someone to come to you, approaching someone that you feel like when they feel something's off. That's one example of something you could take, but that probably needs a little bit more thinking, because that's such a new one. I picked on the one that's literally new today. There. But I think there's a note there about life purpose, because I think there's something in that about sharing your passion and then educating and supporting a learning process in others. So I think that's an important point to remember.
I agree, yes, but that's a good daily task.
Hearing you talk there, I thought, are you giving yourself compassion?
Absolutely.
Really nice, really nice. This is what it's all about, picking up on that, because it's so easy to just not give that.
Neglect yourself.
Absolutely. Right,
I
I'm going to
appreciate
put
you
you
saying
guys
that,
back,
Carl.
and then you're going to share this, but feel free to change your conversation. I'm going to nip out, and then you can wrap up in a minute, and then I'll bring you back.
Okay, cool.
This
Awesome. Welcome back, everyone. How was that? How was it getting to daily action? Because the idea is, once you've got that, you can then work back from it. One thing, I'm not going to go around everyone, but do shout if there's anything that's come up that you want to share. But one thing we'll start to go into next week is the boundary falls out of these as well. They're beautiful. They have so many gifts, honestly, because actually once you're clear on the value, you know what to say no to as well. So the gift that keeps on giving. But this is why they're so interesting, because it has actually all of the answers if we can get into the detail and drop into the detail, because the daily action also has the no, that the thing we have to say no to create the space for that as well. Did that help working that through and having kind of someone to mirror? And I loved what Carol did to Lauren. She was just like, we talking about compassion, and Carol was like, I don't feel like you're showing yourself compassion. And that was exactly what we are here to do, is just pick up on those things where we're like, oh, you know, and there's so much beauty in that.
This is, I just want to share one thing. Like a couple of weeks ago, my boss put a proposal to me. It was no pressure. It, you know, suggested a role I could take on. And then I've been thinking about it, and I've been talking it through with people who know me. And then they've helped me realize, no, just because he's been nice and offering this role doesn't mean to say I have to take it to please him. And so I'm going to tell him when I have my next meeting, no, thank you.
Yeah, isn't that beautiful? Like, just because it's a gift that someone gives you, you don't have to receive that. Like, you can choose that for yourself.
Even not long ago, I would have said yes to it.
Wow, that's massive, isn't it? That's massive.
Yep. So thank you.
Anyone else want to share anything? We've got a few bits that we need to check in on, and please do check in on each other if there's some accountability there about, you know, we're going to check in on Ted, aren't we? Is it Ted?
Yep.
Carol? Yeah,
Ted, yes.
on Ted. So yeah, and please do follow up these conversations outside of these sessions, because this is where you will shift that behavior. If there's no more comments, I'm going to lead into the session. So probably be about 10 minutes. We will also run slightly over, but what I will say is please just leave the session after the meditation. This is why it's quite nice to do it at the end, because you can literally just journal, or you can stay in that space for like 5-10 minutes after, because actually that's where you'll process some of this. So we won't be coming back. So please take, you know, turn the cameras off, get comfy, and then we'll leave the kind of the room, and I'll shut it down after, because I think that'll be a really nice way just to bed some of this in. And then next week, you're all about detail, honoring. So we'll come back, we'll talk a little bit about the daily action again, and then we'll move on to the second module, which is leader within, which is really different.
Next week, is there a session next week though?
I think we're going to carry on, just because of the feedback from most people, because of the fact that actually if we do have a break every 3, we'll be quite close to Christmas, and obviously don't want to.
I can't make it next week.
You both can't. Okay, let me triple check with everyone in terms of numbers.
I can make it.
You can make it.
I can make it. I just wanted to double check, because
let me do a quick kind of tally. I think because of where we're at the program as well, it will be good to keep on going because of the momentum of where we're at in the program. But I think we will take a break. But I was thinking of maybe like that 1st of November, because it's halfway through. But anything that you miss, Carol, like we need to have one-to-one anyway about some of the values that you need to get clear on. And like I said, looking back and being an observer at least one session is probably a good thing to do anyway. So unless you hear anything different, we will carry on. But if, like I said, if at least half of the people can't make it or something, then obviously I will skip a week. Does that sound all right? Cool. All right. So everyone, love and leave you. Obviously, we'll still be here, but enjoy the meditation with Lizzie, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week.
Thank you.
Thanks, Anna.
Everyone, so just getting yourselves, I can't speak this evening, getting yourselves nice and comfortably seated, lengthening through the spine, and then just gently close your eyes. As you close your eyes, just allow the whole body to soften. So especially the shoulders, just allow the shoulders to drop away from the ears. And just allow the feet to be nice and soft as well. So I'd like you now just to take a nice deep inhale through the nose and draw your shoulders towards the ears. And then on the exhale, just very gently allow the shoulders to drop away from the ears. Again, another deep inhale, draw the shoulders towards the ears. And then on the exhale, very gently release the shoulders away from your ears. One more time, nice deep inhale. And exhale, just allow the shoulders